thank you for joining us here this evening. I would first like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from Gadigal land, part of the Great Eora Nation, lands that were never ceded and are now and always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to our second series of Come to Where I Am, Australia, and the first volume of stories for 2021. Last year, we launched this international partnership with groundbreaking UK touring company Plough, with our first volume of this project presenting 15 terrific stories from playwrights from right around Australia. Tonight, we launch our next series, and we'll be sharing 9 new stories tonight and next Wednesday, introducing you to the voices and homes of 9 extraordinary playwrights from around the country. Stories about and from their homes, sharing with you a glimpse of what it is like to be where they are now. We live in extraordinary times, and I hope that this series serves as a unique time capsule of the period with all its ups and downs. These stories are original works commissioned by Critical Stages Touring, produced as video postcards, filmed on location by the writers themselves in their homes, or sometimes outside their homes, and read to you by the writers themselves. For us, this is a creative response to the period where, for the time being, performing arts touring has been on hiatus or stop and start. So this project offers our audiences a chance to travel virtually, in a sense, from the safety of our homes to visit artists in their homes all around our country. Tonight, we're bringing you stories from Perth in Western Australia on Wajik, Nyunga Budja, and Canberra, ACT, on Ngunnawal country, Blue Mountains on Gundungurra and Darug country, and Melbourne, Victoria on the lands of the Kulin Nation. If you miss any of them or want to rewatch or share with your friends, they'll be available on our new online screening room, which is our digital theatre space for performance, a new section of our website where we are housing now 15 of our first series of Come to Where I Am Australia videos, and by the end of next week, you'll see an extra 9 stories there as well. So the way this evening will roll out, in a few moments you'll be introduced to playwrights Erica Brennan, Tasnim Hussain, Michelle Lee and Daly Rangi, with special introductions available only in this live online event. And while you're watching, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section, and do let us know where you're tuning in from. If you enjoy tonight and would like to help us support more artists and more projects like this, please head to our Support Us page. If everyone who is able to donated the price of a coffee where you live, that would be amazing. So I'm now very pleased to introduce from the UK the brilliant co-artistic directors of Plough, Katie and Charlotte, to help us introduce tonight's performances.
Hi, I'm Charlotte and I'm the Joint Artistic Director at Plough, and we just wanted to say that we're absolutely thrilled to be partnering with Critical Stages again to premiere some more pieces of Come to Where I Am Australia. We wish all the writers best of luck as we platform and debut their brilliant stories.
Earlier today, I had the opportunity to chat about this evening's performances with 2 of the writers, Erica Brennan and Michelle Lee. So to help us find out more about their stories, let's hear a bit from the writers themselves.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Erica and Michelle, for joining me here to talk about your shows this evening. I wonder if you can both just introduce yourselves, maybe starting with you, Erica.
Yes, hi, my name is Erica Brennan and I've written a piece called Jurassic Bark.
And Michelle.
My name is Michelle Lee and I've written a piece called The Real Housewives of Coburg.
So Michelle, we can guess where yours is set, in Coburg in Melbourne, which is where you live, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And Erica, where is yours set? Where's your Jurassic Bark?
It's set just outside of the Blue Mountains, which is where I grew up and still consider my hometown, in the Wallamine National Park.
And where did you film yours?
I filmed mine at the foot of the Blue Mountains in Glenbrook, picked my favourite tree and sat in front of it. It was a bit rough. We were trying to do it between lots of rainstorms, but we got it. It was a lot of fun.
Beautiful. And Michelle, do you want to tell us about the inspiration for your piece and why you chose to tell your story riffing off the Housewives franchise?
Well, the Housewives franchise, as you know, or you may not know, takes us to different locations across the world, I think, and we meet women in these different locations. They're often quite wealthy or self-made women. I've watched enough of the different locations and have really enjoyed how you do get a certain kind of sense of place in that show. So I wanted to riff off that. And also I guess I often think about and navigate space in terms not just of like physicality and geography, but also in terms of whiteness and race.
And Erica, do you want to tell us a little bit about the inspiration, your connection to your story?
Yeah, it was inspired by real events that happened across the 2019-2020 fires that kind of took over most of New South Wales. So there was one of the mega blazes in particular was threatening the location of the Wallamine Pine, and that location is kept secret because there's always people trying to go there and like steal them and do all sorts of stuff. So the National Parks and Wildlife Services and the Rural Fire Services joined together and like sent out this secret mission to go and protect the trees. There was water bombs, there was melted irrigation piping. There was one guy on the ground that kind of went out and did all of this incredible work in a couple of hours, and they weren't sure if it was going to work. It was high stakes. It was very likely that these trees weren't going to be rescued. Then they had to wait 4 days for the smoke to clear to see if they managed it, and you'll find out in the piece whether they do or not.
Great, fabulous. Michelle, what are you looking forward to most about sharing these stories this evening with people?
I hope that it will give people maybe a pause, a reflection on how they kind of talk about parts of their identity or not within their found families and their communities.
Yeah, fabulous. I'm sure it will. And Erica, what's exciting you about sharing the stories tonight?
I'm really interested at the moment. I think Australia has a really fascinating relationship with efforts of conservation. We've got some really great wins under our belt and some really horrible catastrophes that we've kind of contributed to. So I've kind of explored that from both ends of the spectrums, but this has been the first chance I've gotten to really just kind of go for a real heroic story, something where I think humans are at their best. They're using their skill and their knowledge and their sense of, I guess, custodianship to take care of something that needs our protection. So I'm really excited to share this story with a wider audience and kind of highlight that, in a moment where maybe we need some light stories to make us feel good.
It's fabulous. I'm sure audiences are going to love seeing them. Thank you both for telling us a bit more about the origins of your pieces, and we'll see you later on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And now, without further ado, let's begin the night. I do hope you enjoy. See you afterwards. Thank you.
And Wallies have touched down. Prepare for a good time. Shh. Here we are. Drop straight into it. Things have been heating up for a while in our little patch of green-blue with rocks and hills and pretty eucalyptus oils. Don't have much time, ratbag, so let me catch you up. Right now I have a few cool moments for you, but it'll get real hot real soon and we got to get ahead of that smoke, because where there's smoke, there's... You got it. Here's how the mission's going to go. Thumbs up to the winch crew because we got in safe. Then use those legs to push through the gusting wind and get down the steep gully here. At the bottom is a mess of melted irrigation pipes we got to patch up. Switch on the generator to get the water up from the creek. Use those hoses we got in the pack to drench any ground fuel. Got to keep the moisture level elevated to protect all this green-blue. And if you see embers, better start running, ratbags. Oi! Keza! Keza's my boss. She ain't my biggest fan today. Wanted to go in here alone. No way was I going to let that happen. There's someone down in that gully I'm dying to meet. Danny, mate, let's go. Kez takes the lead and I follow. Careful to leave only the faintest of footprints in this sacred place. Come on, yous. Keep up. No walking tracks in this wild place. All skinny trees and dim light. But I can see the way forward. Only been with the squad a short while, but I've been doing my job for a long while. Funny how long things take. But you stick to your guns and you get the places you need to go. You see this bloke here? Little lyrebird patch? He's on my shoulder now, but he's been looking over it for a long time. Keep an eye on me, helps me know I'm on the right track. Oh! Fell on my bum. Skidded a fair way down. Hands clawing for grip. Nothing there to hold my big strong bulk. Rock takes a bit of my hip with it. You right? Kaz skids it above. Jumping over me, she makes it safely down. She's still annoyed at me, I can tell. Don't worry, mate. Good looks are still intact. Grey mud on my clothes now, and I pick out some leaves that are stuck to it. Crush them between my fingers, quick stepping after Kaz, who just disappeared around the last drop. That lovely smell, almost sweet, almost stinging, hits you in the top of your throat. Hey, look. We're here. Hello there, fella. He's got this funny little bubble and bark on his trunk. It tickles my hand. Yeah, this is them. This is the trees we're here to protect. Who used to be mates to the dinosaurs. Millions of years alone, separated but surviving. This cocoa popicide, this Wallamine giant. We got a lot in common, this fella and me. Ancient bloodlines and impressive knowledge that has survived against all odds. Him, growing as he's been told to do since he was a seed. And me, standing here under his spiny canopy, with 60-odd thousand years of knowledge looking over my shoulder. Law and understanding of how to care for country. You stick to your guns and you get the places you need to go. Hey, would you believe me if I told you that Kez and I are part of a top secret firefighting super squad dedicated to the prevention of environmental disasters? We're something straight out of a comic book. Got that double alliteration name and everything. Name's not to share, but you can hear them call us the Wallies. Bit of a silly name, keeping our identities and our missions secret. And today's mission? Save the Wallamine pine trees from fiery extinction. I'm pretty chuffed they asked me to join up. Kez pats one of the trees next to me. All right, fellas. You just stay here and keep on growing. Young Danny and me, going to be as quick as we can. Drag me pack off and throw Kez the new irrigation piping so she can fix it. Good thing we came in today. The ground's pretty dry, and there's all this leaf rubbish that's built up. Your fire ain't bad. It's just this country hasn't had a good medicine burning in way too long. And now we got to think different to get ahead of it. Got my hose ready now and the generator's pumping water out the end. If we don't succeed today, Kez and I could be the last people to see these dinosaur trees alive. I feel myself speeding up, pushing my body to go faster, getting clever about how I'm spraying the water, looking real hard to find the right place. When you've been learning about fire as long as I have, it's hard to tell how you know when things are going to go belly up, but I think if you've made as many mistakes as I have, you just know. Like right now, I don't want yous to panic, but do you feel that heat creeping in? Shh, wind's changing, Wallies. Shh, time to go. Shh. Told ya. Kez is struggling to finish the pipes. Water's not getting where it needs to go. I pull the hose out as far as I can and I jam it into a heap of leaves, wedged between two rocks and angled just right. I can get that rushing water to nearly close the gap. Kez from behind me shouting, Danny! That'll have to be enough. Smoke rushing in, snaking through the trees, pushed on quick by the wind. No time for a trickle, it's all hot and bothering here. And then the embers start to fall. My heart stops for a moment watching these little burning scraps of leaves and bark rain down. Because all this green-blue, all this sweet wildness, it can't run like we can. Shh! Get to the chopper! Shh! Now! Shh! Kez and I run. Lightfoot, swift heart, we run, wanting to believe that we've done enough, hoping we can get through the danger zone and up the other side so Elvis's little copter cousin can come get us. Come on, yous lot, keep up! Push my big legs to run harder. Kez on my heels, ducking and weaving from the snapping branches that scrape by me. Sparks still flying in the air, sky turning orange. We're going to have to go to ground. Fire's too quick. I can see the spot just ahead of us. Little grey rock large enough and flat enough, sticking out of the ground just enough, and a nice long drop after it. Fire should move through quick. Nothing to burn on that side. Give us a little shelter to curl up under. Legs dig in and I leap over the small ledge. Kangaroos would be jealous. Kez launches herself a second behind me. Get up in here, you lot. Tuck up in here, in the crevice of the rock with us. Yous okay? Kez scrabbles a hand back into her bag, pulls a ripcord, and we're plunged into complete blackout. I'm scared. This mega blaze, she's so angry. The heat, like standing in front of an open oven and you can't close it even though your skin's scorched off. Maybe this is it. Maybe me and Kez were the last ones to see those dinosaur trees. Maybe them trees were the last ones to see us. Got to get smaller under this blanket. The less of you there is, the quicker the front will pass over your body. No heroes here. Just two women curled up small, hoping to survive the next 30 seconds. It doesn't matter how hot it gets, you curl smaller and tighter into yourself. All you can feel is your own skin, and the temperature rising as you curl smaller and smaller. You get so small you eventually turn inside out, and all that was out there is in here now, and everything is all blister and heat and melting meat. It's all black bones and feathers singed by the bagful, stinking up the already stinking truth. We did this. We all did. Fire can be healing, but this one burns with a searing arrogance that can only be man-made, and now she wants us to burn with her. Shh! Rescue Wally's standing by. Shh! Kez shifts, throwing off the fire blanket. What's she doing? Or use budge over a bit. She's got her laser flare out and pointing it up at the sky. Little blue beacon for the rest of the squad to come find us. And there, above us, the bars and blades of our rescue chopper, flashing lights to show me where the door is. My lyrebird mate, stenciled on his tail, always looking out for me. Shh! There you are, mad dogs! Shh! Never been so happy to see this little copter with more Wallies inside. One piloting, another lowering a winch with two harnesses. Kez clips herself in, but I can't move. Sorry, yous. I think I'm about to crash. It's not just the heat and the smoke. It's all of it. I pushed myself too hard and it still might not have been enough. Kez slips the harness over me, clipping us tight together. She hugs me close as she gives me the okay to them above. Ground falls away. My big square body bashes into the tops of the skinny trees, and in just a little bit higher we can breathe easier. My eyes clear a little too. It's pretty crook what I see. Just black. Flat, black, smouldering land. No more green-blue. Winch working hard to pull us up. Did we do enough? Smoke still hanging so thick we won't be able to see the grove for days. Want to tell the pilot to stop and wait for it to clear. The Wally operating the winch reaches his hand out to us. Kaz hurls herself in first. I reckon I'm all good to dangle in the air here until I know if we did it or not. I could sit in this harness for a few nights, no problem. Something makes me turn my head. Kez! Kez, look! Kez leans out to look where I'm pointing, but the wind swirled up again and pushes the smoke to hide it. But yous all saw it, right? Down there, a little sliver of green-blue in the black. Little secret grove of Wallamine pines, doing what they do best. Surviving.
Hi, my name's Tasneem Hussain and I'm a playwright from Canberra. I wrote the piece, This is the Place, Canberra, because I wanted to tell the story of my hometown as I saw it and as I've seen it for decades. I wanted to share the things that I loved and the things that I found difficult. And I hope you enjoy watching it tonight. My hometown is a city that hums, quiet and low. I know the contours of the Brindabella Ranges in the distance better than I know the backs of my own hands. I know its streets that wind and bend, curved like a mother cat around her kittens. This is a city that gets to be in the news all the time. The latest from Canberra is, Canberra said that, as if it were just some old white men in suits on a hill, men who must call their wives to have empathy explained to them, men who leave their wives and children behind for months of the year, men who are unfaithful. Instead of a city with suburbs and homes and people that unfurls across valleys. I think suburbs are much maligned. We are not urban centres of art, grunge, nightlife. We are not rural fields and farms and small, close communities. We are my childhood home, where my family has lived for 20 years, with a ramshackle chicken coop in the back and the magnolia out the front that we planted together in a garden that I planned and landscaped when I was a teenager. This used to be a city, town, really, of internal migrants. People from more respectable cities, actual cities, coming here for a few years for work or study, maybe having young families and then moving away once more. But some stayed, some like my parents did, almost 40 years ago. This is the place where my mother arrived across an ocean with one suitcase, a university admission, and her parents' fervent prayers. I remember being so shocked when someone pointed out to me that this was the only capital city of any state or territory that had a name that came from our first people. Or maybe as a realization on my own. Of course, there are many smaller towns, but none that are capitals. Almost all the others are names of long dead men who had wealth and power I hugely doubt they deserved. Meeting place. That is what this means. And it is now, as it has been since time immemorial. When I was a child, the annual bogong moth migration would come through on its way south to rest for the summer in the Australian Alps. The bright lights of Parliament House would lure them in, and for 4 weeks, late in the year, school children and politicians alike would have to deal with the influx of flapping, disoriented moths bursting forth from pencil cases or light fittings. The migration is smaller now, the bogong moths less plentiful. They served as a food source, abundant and rich in nutrients and fats for the First Nations people for generations. And we came and built buildings that we lit stark as midday and logged forests and burnt coal, and now these unassuming moths are lost in our lights and dwindling. Sometimes I still think about them. This is a town that holds stories in between its hills, across its limestone plains. Let me show you. This is the place where my parents lived as a newly married couple in university housing on Northbourne Avenue. And this is the window where they sat on Sundays and counted one car passing north and another heading south and cried for the busy lives and big families they'd left behind. This is the place where the hospital once stood where my brother was born and where my mum went when she was pregnant with me. It is where, when she asked her obstetrician if there was any way that she could stay past her student visa just for the delivery of her first daughter, he sneered and asked, "Don't women have children in your country?" I mean, they did. But in 1991, it also had one of the highest maternal and infant mortality rates in the world. But my mum is proud, is still proud, and vowed to go back and have her baby, whatever the outcome would be. This is the place where my parents returned a year later, healthy baby daughter in their arms, toddler son by their sides, ready to settle and eventually become citizens. In the place where the hospital once was is now a museum, a national institution overlooking a lake. This is the place where I had both my Year 10 and Year 12 formals, where I danced the nutbush in 4-inch heels with girls who I would stay friends with for the many years, milestones and heartaches ahead. This is the place where I sat on a pew with some of those same girls years later as one of us farewelled her mother. It is where we cried together for a woman who had also mothered us, with cups of tea and curry puffs and BBC period dramas alongside her own daughters. This is the place at Honeysuckle Creek where the 5 of us went camping on the decommissioned site of a former NASA space station, hidden in the national park just south of the city. The station received the world's first televised images of Neil Armstrong stepping foot on the moon, images my parents watched as children, oceans away. There is nothing to mark that spot now but a dead-end bitumen road, pitted with disuse, a concrete slab and some signage. Hidden in the national park, that is exactly how it should be. It is there, just below that spot, that we set up our tent on boggy campgrounds. The rain had caught us not 10 minutes after arriving. It is there that one of us fought off a kangaroo, another tried and failed to recover an entire bag of cashews from a thieving possum, and we all toasted marshmallows over coals. We went for a bushwalk the next morning, and that is the place where we all ended up peeing in the bush, and that is the place 200 metres on where the track came to a car park complete with drop toilets. This is the place, a suburban shopping centre once called the Hyperdome, where we decided to eat breakfast instead of cooking porridge with soy milk over a paraffin stove again. It was over those eggs Benedict that we decided to never go camping again. We're Canberrans. We should have gone down the coast. This is the place where my Year 6 trivia team were crowned second in Australia on the university campus that I would end up attending, that my mother came to attend all those years ago. This is the place where I sat on faux red leather ottomans in a corner of the shopping centre where a friend taught me how to play poker when we were 16 using balls of Lindt chocolate. Those ottomans are long gone, as is that friendship. His now wife once told our friend that she was ashamed to be seen by his relatives in the company of brown people. This is the place downstairs in the same shopping centre in front of the Baker's Delight where a woman came up behind me on the morning of the Sydney siege at the Lindt Cafe, called me a cunt and walked away. I felt her breath hot against my cheek and my hijab, but I never saw her face. That was the place where the girl behind the bakery counter said nothing as I shook silent. That was the place where the artistic director of the youth theatre at the time, across the road, found me and held me as I cried. This all happened on the same morning that I started proper rehearsals for my first ever play in that same theatre lent to us by that same AD. As I sobbed in her arms, she told me that that's why I should keep writing and speaking and never stop. This is the place, Platform 8, in the Civic Interchange, where I caught the bus home every day after school and then uni. The bus numbers have all changed and everyone gets the light rail now. This is the place right here by the lake, in the crook of Commonwealth Avenue Bridge and the National Library, where I sat on a concrete bollard with my head on the shoulder of the boy I loved, and both of us drowning at university under the weight of our own expectations, holding on to each other for dear life, never once speaking about the way either of us truly felt. This is the place where I went on my very first proper night out, a salsa night, where some random guy came up to me and said Assalamu alaikum, and even though my parents knew that I was out with the girls from my French class, I felt ashamed, like I had something to confess. This is the place where my best friend from kindergarten and I galloped around the school grounds in the shadow of Parliament House on our imaginary Shetland ponies called Sunshine and Cupcake. It's been 25 years and somehow we're still best friends. This is the place where my brother and my sister-in-law got married and had a Lebanese drumming band lift the roof off the Hyatt Hotel. And this is the place at a second wedding reception at an Islamic centre where 350 guests were stuffed full of Bengali-style gachi biryani that people still talk about years later. This is the place where at one of the countless wedding receptions of strangers I barely remember, an auntie from the community accused me of abandoning my parents because I'd moved away to another city. Another told me not to speak to her daughter so as not to give her ideas. She laughed as if it were a joke. I took a breath and told them that I had had to move away for opportunities, that I had graduated from university in the wake of a Conservative government being elected and that there was a freeze on hiring. That I hadn't wanted to move away, but I couldn't find any work here. That's when I talked to my mother about it, about how I yearned for home. She said to me, I had to leave my parents too, to be able to have better opportunities. Besides, Canberra to Sydney is much closer than Canberra to Dhaka. I said all this to the aunties and reminded them that they too had all done the same. They nodded, thinking of the mothers they had left behind themselves. This is the place on the crest of a hill where when you get the Murray's bus from Sydney, you can see the city unfurl below you like a hawker who's laid out her wares on a cloth. This is the place where the newest mosque in Canberra was built, with tall windows that look out over grasslands and kangaroos, a mosque my parents worked for years and years to see established. This is the place where my mum's brother and his family settled, and that is the place where my father's sister and her family settled. This is where my sister was born. That is where my cousin was born. This is where my brother was born, and that is where his daughter was born 3 decades later. This is the place where my father says he will live out the rest of his days knowing heaven will be beautiful because God let him have a little taste of it here. And that is truly ridiculous because the public transport is so bad, but sometimes in the early mornings when the air is crisp and still and full of promise, I think I see what he means. So even though time after time I leave my parents and my family and my friends because I must, for opportunities, just as my parents had a lifetime ago, I always find my way back because all this is the place that is home.
Michelle here. I'm writing to you from Coburg, in the inner boroughs of Melbourne, Naarm. I'm in my bedroom/study. Maybe you can hear the cars behind me on busy Bell Street, the chooks in my front yard. In this year's season of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, in episode 1, Back to Beverly Hills, we meet your husband, Rob Minkoff, who, as I quickly found out, directed The Lion King, the actual Lion King. Crystal, you must be rich as fuck in that Beverly Hills mansion of yours, but you seem pretty level-headed. In The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, it's all brunches and boulevards and backyards that never seem to end. But in the opening credits, you declare, Hollywood is full of pretenders and I slay them all. If there were credits for The Real Housewives of Coburg, I think I'd say, Coburg is full of aging hipsters and I cook dinner parties for them all. Guess what, Crystal? I think I am a housewife. I stopped working my part-time office job after many years. I'm my own boss now, like you. Any tips? I know that we're worlds apart. I'm Hmong, you're Chinese. My partner fixes solar panels. Your husband makes movies that burn indelibly into the consciousness of most of my generation. I have a 2-bedroom house. You've got a mansion. I don't have a housemaid. I have 1 kid, not 2. But when you speak about race on The Real Housewives, about being Asian, and none of the white housewives have to think about race, only the non-white ones do. And the white ones drop their jaws dramatically. For a moment, I am you and you are me. Love, Michelle. The Real Housewives of Coburg. Coburg is full of aging hipsters and I cook dinner parties for them all. Interior. A renovated Edwardian weatherboard single-fronted 2-bedroom house in Coburg. Afternoon. Michelle sits on her renovated deck, raising a cheese board. She stares out at her expansive property of 300 square meters, hemmed in by the fences of 4 other expansive 300 square meter lots. Renters, owners trying to sell, owners just returned. Bell Street hums behind her. Her friend and local housewife, Beth, eats home-brined olives. Summer is approaching and both Coburg housewives shriek with the same idea. Girls' weekend away. Away from their husbands, away from their kids. Cut back to a flashback image of their kids saying something cute. Cut back then to Michelle and Beth shrieking, "We're going on a holiday." New scene, interior, Al Alami, the best Middle Eastern bakery in Coburg. Lunchtime, it's hectic. Michelle enters in the new outfit. She looks $1 million. Near the self-serve grains and pulses is Rachel, another Coburg. The housewives went away together. Cut to the previous trip where Michelle is yelling at Nicola. Cut to a direct-to-camera commentary from Rachel. She raises an eyebrow, nervous. Michelle's a playwright, so she always brings the drama. Cut back to Al Alami. Michelle reconsiders. Instead of going away, all the housewives should do something more ethical and less carbon emitting. Staycation! Hi, Crystal. About the leather pants, the ones you wore in episode 8, the good, the bad, and the ugly leather pants. When Sutton called them ugly, I was furious. All the other housewives dropped their jaws. Then there was that quick cutaway. Housewife Erica looked at the camera and also agreed it was a low blow. According to Entertainment Tonight Online, you've patched things up with Sutton. You've all but confirmed too that you're coming back for season 12. I love my local housewives. Crystal, I'm not literally the only Asian Australian housewife in this postcode, but like you, I am the only one in my little bubble. Coburg is a suburb where we love to renovate and breed, where developers buy up the old bungalows and turn them into townhouses, where there are skerricks of old Coburg, the faded signage of now closed small businesses, the weary-looking arcades. My neighbour on the corner is 90-year-old Sammy, who meets with other older Italian men for morning coffees in the plaza. The main high street on Sydney Road is abundant with kebab shops. Recently, a big organic supermarket opened up, only minutes down the road. Love, Michelle. Interior, Coburg RSL. Daytime. There's a visitor's book at the front. Inside the RSL, the paraphernalia pays quiet tribute to the wars Australians have fought in. But these days, the RSL's clientele has diversified. It's new Coburg. Local beer on tap, weekend day festivals on the front lawn, dog-friendly, kid-friendly, all are welcome, all colours, all genders, all family configurations. Michelle sits on the grass. She looks $1 million. Beside her is Beth, Rachel, the other housewives too, Jane, Mim, and Nicola. They also look $1 million. This is their staycation. A weekend of Coburg. There's a silence, shock. All eyes are on Michelle. Rachel's mouth gapes open. Beth is shaking her head. Michelle has just made drama. She lashed out at all the other housewives for not backing her up. She asked the RSL staff whether the Vietnam War should be called the war in Vietnam because it was never a war that Vietnam started. It wasn't their war, you know? Cut away to a direct-to-camera commentary from Nicola sighing. It's an RSL. What do you expect? Come here with your semantics and expect to get served, but not at the bar. Cut away to Beth. Did we sign up for a staycation or a stay lecture? Cut back to the RSL. Everyone has calmed down. They sip beer. Semantics do matter. The housewives nod, soothing. They all work in social justice, not NGO, climate conscious, helping sort of jobs. And even if they don't think about whiteness every moment of the day, they see Michelle as upset. Someone proffers a bag of kettle chips. Interior, the local discount chemist. Daytime. Pensioners fill their scripts. In the makeup aisle, Michelle de-stresses. She treats herself to a free makeover with the test tubes from the various cosmetic brands. Beside her is Nicola, who now has done an about face and is reconciling with Michelle. The fuchsia Revlon lipstick looks great on them both. They spritz themselves with a perfume designed by Ariana Grande. Hi, Crystal. None of that happened. But I think of you, Crystal. In episode 4, Gossip Girls, I found out that your eating disorder began at age 11. You wanted to be skinny like white girls. I remember too hating the softness of my belly, wanting to be streamlined and sprightly on the netball courts like the white girls. These days, Crystal, are you white enough? Am I? Do you fit in enough? Do I? Are we both exhausted from trying? I loved your fashion-forward leather pants. I'd wear them in a heartbeat. Love, Michelle. Exterior, Bush Reserve Playground. It's daytime. Michelle stands by the playground in a new outfit. The Bush Reserve is all gum trees, grevillea, wooden climbing equipment. It's in a former quarry, and the information sign also tells us about the first assistant Aboriginal protector in this area. Dogs run around in the off-leash bit. Michelle's joined by Beth, Rachel, Jane, Mim, Nicola. Everyone looks $1 million Coburg dollars in that untouched up way, sunbrushed way, that parenthood and life has aged me way. Despite Michelle's awesome blouse and patterned skirts, she's wearing practical shoes, well equipped to play chases. The housewives' collective brood of children play, take turns on the flying fox. The housewives speak about how wonderful each other's kids are. Cut away to Nicola. It's not that we shouldn't talk about the race stuff, but I teach my kids to have respect. That's the most important thing, right? Interior. The renovated two-beddy weatherboard, Michelle's house. Daytime, Michelle browses her Ottolenghi cookbooks planning a menu for the next neighbourhood dinner. Flashback to previous dinners on the deck, the barbecue alive with smoke. Interior, we're in a different renovated 2-bedroom Edwardian weatherboard. It's daytime. Beth discusses solar panels. Maybe she will hit Michelle's partner up for advice. Beth's husband half listens as he reads the Saturday paper on his phone. Interior, a 3-bedroom renovated bungalow in Coburg. Daytime, Jane thinks aloud about enrolling her kid into a local circus class. She says, aware of the camera, "We'll just start with 1 class a week." The 2-year-old toddles in and says something cute that the editors will include. Interior, the local Coburg pool. Daytime. By the pool, as her children do their swimming lessons, Mim scrolls realestate.com, marveling at how the house prices have increased in Coburg. Interior, Michelle's house again. Michelle's in the kitchen making complicated ottolenghi rice. From the adjacent living room, her son asks if he can watch Mean Uncle, which is what he calls the Lion King. Michelle puts it on. She tells him she watched this when she was a kid too. She sings along with the Circle of Life, but because her kid is only 4, this nostalgia has no Circle of Life significance for him. Hi Michelle, Krista Kung Minkoff here. Thanks so much for sliding into my DMs. No, seriously, it's not weird at all. Don't be self-deprecating. I'm sorry I didn't get back sooner. I wasn't avoiding you. No, I was off social media for a little bit. I wish haters could be cancelled, right? But I had to get back on social media because my tweets are really funny and the gram is where it's at for marketing my plant-based beverage company, which they never really depicted much of in The Real Housewives. I'm really more than just Rob Minkoff's wife. In answer to your questions, are we white enough? No, Michelle, no, we are not white enough. Don't even play that game. Do we fit in enough? Do we want to? Are we exhausted from trying? Well, I'm exhausted from not trying. And about being a housewife, congratulations. I mean, it's a fairly broad, outdated term that's debatably not even that amusing in the context of the show. So just make it what you make it, okay? Oh, also, I popped something in the mail for you. Love, Crystal. Exterior, Bell Street, a major arterial road, afternoon. While the 60km/h traffic swims past, and as a sudden rain passes down, Michelle walks in the mild wet on her way to the Coles to buy extra goat's cheese for the dinner party. She forgot to get this earlier. She wears the very magnificent and not ugly leather pants that Crystal sent her. She sort of winces, sort of grins, as she ploughs on towards the shops.
My name is Daly Rangi, and I'm coming to you from near Plough on Wodjuk Noongar Budja. My work is titled Brutal, after the myriad examples of brutalist architecture which make up what is colonially known as the Perth Central Business District and the cultural centre of Northbridge. Truth does not always have to be brutal, but sometimes the world is such. I've certainly experienced this throughout my life, and I believe you have too. This work might be hard to swallow at points, for a variety of reasons, and I acknowledge this. Feel free to disengage at your leisure. I also acknowledge my and our own hypocrisies in how we have come to and continue to exist and consume, and that we have an urgent diversion to make as a community. And I also encourage deep listening, reflection, understanding, and kindness. Hopefully you find more within the words than the harsh concrete slab onto which I've carved them. Thank you.
Brutal was written, filmed, and recorded near Plough on Wodjuk Noongar Budja. In acknowledging the thousands and thousands of years of culture and stories and life of this Budja, we care for it. We make our acknowledgements not just verbal, but active. We pay our respects to all elders and ancestors, and recognize that this land was never ceded. Sovereignty was never ceded. Always was, always will be. Perth is a brutal, beautiful sunset, they say, sipping long from chilled craft beers, condensation dripping over weathered hands, as the endless summer stretches its golden arms over hot tin roofs. The proverbial cat gulps down the warm blood of a native parrot, as the oblivious youth squawk and frolic in faux lagoons. Chomp down on your Conti roll and bite off more than you can chew. Top your long macchiato up to the brim, overflow it with privilege and take in the view. They are content to partake in their personal slice of the fool's paradise, content in ignorance. Some have even moulded this into arrogance. They know it's the longest sprawl in the world. It's a point of pride. They've been sprawling for a couple of 100 years now, concrete slabs paid for and poured over bush, over budja, over trauma, over truth. Nothing great ever came of concrete. Plenty good, but nothing great. Think about it. We build with it, we shelter within it, we make lives out of it, we take it for granted, we exploit it, we sell it, we steal it, we make sweet, dusty love to it. But does concrete actually spark joy? Do you dream beautiful dreams of concrete? Will concrete save us from ourselves? Rescue our impending doom? Bring us peace or break us to pieces? Truly we may build a wall, but one day surely it will fall. Do you know where concrete comes from? What concrete is and what it does, what part it plays in our collective life? Let's just pretend you care for a moment. After water, concrete is the second most used substance on Earth, they say. That's what a lazy, cursory internet search taught me anyway. Hey, don't judge. You weren't to know that it produces 8% of carbon dioxide emissions. Your friendly, reasonable neighbourhood gas, made by you, your most mortal of enemies. It is, as some say, the foundation of modern civilization, a coarse font of life, and yet the most destructive to the same. It is, as some would, how we try to tame nature. And yet to tame by this method is extinction. Many of us humans think ourselves immortal, yet we have proven time after time that we live and die by the rock. The more brutal the rise, a most brutal demise. The term brutalist architecture was coined in 1963 by Perth architect Professor Jean-Paul Francois Brut, a migrant from the Champagne region of France. Just like his namesake, Jean-Paul was a crude, dry man, obsessed with the rawest of materials, concrete. This small story is all a lie, of course, but faux history is in vogue, the ultimate joke of a jester proclaimed injustice of the unpeace with no mercy here. But there is truth to the falsity. In truth, or at least paddling in the shallow water, we sleuth that the isolated nation-state of Perth was once in a race, a solo marathon, to become a more modern city. And what's more modern than concrete? Perth would soon become as ugly, imposing, and monolithic as its colonial past. They would now have something else to ignore. In true Australian fashion, the first brutalist building would be a prison, referred to in pretense as a school for men. The Hale School Memorial Hall became a miserable place where youth would be brainwashed to toe the Conservative Party line, forced to learn how to run their father's businesses, invasive seeds germinating cement aggregate, soon to flower and scatter their capitalist pollen amidst what historians refer to as a central business district. It was like patient zero for a plutocratic virus, the symptoms appearing as $100 bills folded in their pockets and a penchant for abusing people of the global majority. Horrific, majestic, brutal, hyperbole, perhaps, colonial, relapse. Power is insidious, persistent, hideous, and resistant, like concrete. It bred endless suburbia, bursting with pretense. Lonely figures sit in superficial, sacrificial concrete caves with a cold, burnished floor, surrounded by macro plastics galore, concretes contaminating comrade in arms, limitless isolation, and fathomless nights beneath flickering gaslights. No warmth here despite the bushfire fever. Feverous buying, feverous lying, feverous dying, their prescription printed on plastic paper. No solution, but more pollution. The big business here is liquid gold and rocks as old as time itself. Salt of the earth, cultural quarry, now dust on the wind. No questions, please, as their mineral prosperities are spent insensibly by insipid human husks, hiding high in the tallest towers in town. You would think that denizens of the sunny abyss would, on laying their eye and hand upon such harsh lines and uninviting facades, such rough-sewn textures and aspects monotonous, such heavy shadows and imposing aura, that they would lose all hope with swift incident. And so they indeed did. But, as a truly masochistic lot, they bathed in their melancholia, virtuosos of gloom. More, they cried, give us more, we shall kneel before our ugly grey erections, remind us of our dull existence even as we travel far and wide, but this time use bricks. And so the East Perth Public Transport Centre was delivered, the year of 76, ending with the barren birthing of Brown amidst bitumen bad land. Terminal, to be sure, centrepiece of the suburban rail. As you were ferried into your brutalist office, your commute would provide brutalist landmarks for your gaze. Take a sickie, go up south, go down north, go out east, bag and bring your brutal behaviours, you touristic, voyeuristic beast. What about the weekend? The end to our week? We want it brutal and short. What then could we seek? Perth asked their benevolent architectural overlords. Well, you could visit the Brutalist Cultural Centre, and, unaware of the irony of the multi-millennial ancestors you tread upon, losing breath, the slowest death, you could read about brutalism at the Brutalist Library, or look at a Brutalist exhibition at the Brutalist Art Gallery, or pay a visit to the Brutalist Concert Hall, and if you feel unwell listening to Ignaz Brühl, the Brutalist Hospital would look after you as your children prayed for the brutal gods to let you live your brutal life in the Brutalist Christian Science Sunday School. Your life, in all its brutal boredom, manifest around you by mining boom, blow it all up to the very last rock. Live a simple existence and stare into the sun until your skin cells burn and flake. Show it off in your coffin, your beach-ridden wake. What is sand but millions of tiny little rocks anyway? The ground would provide all. One could take and take and take and take to make and make and make and make their entire existence brutal. Stroll down the street, under trees long gone or long dead, shadows long worn, waltz long roads ahead as that sun beats down on a warm artificial floor. A mattress of hot, biting sharp and deep red, running rampant in cracks of coarseness, defiling light grey with darkest of crimson. A stained calling card for senseless crimes in senseless times, and you think not about them, a body or two or three or more, many more now, then, and before. The concrete years, beaten down, not by sun, but by hand, sirens and chains, haunting those bodies left to rot in the grime. If only we gave them more of their time, helped them build a velvet cocoon, so one day soon they could emerge, wings held wide, and fly into that balmy sun, leave the cruel world behind. Don't give up on it, though, this city of stone, of hard hearts, of stern minds. Don't get caught in the hate as it unfurls and unwinds. Through thick speech they do preach to build and rebuild, make and remake. Sure, progress is good, but what is at stake? Where are we going? What have we lost? In the search for ideas of civilization, what is the cost? Centuries mean nothing in the shadow of millennia. Look into your soul and then look for what's left. Look for the gold that those thieves could not theft. Look into the sky, it's still there. Look to the ocean, it's still there. Look to the sand, it's still there. Look to the bush, it's still there. Look, it's barely there, by a thread. Listen to it, to each other, to those who can hear. It whispers through the floor to you. The facade is up, so push it all the way back. Let ancient awe inspire you and passionately pick up the hammer, but not for a nail, but to the concrete slab. Crack. Break up what holds us all down. No frown, just sweat on the brow. Look to the life, it's still there. Look for it and remind yourself where you live, laugh and love, and then look much deeper than a trivial motto. From below to above. You were not here first, and you will not be the last. Look to the beings around you, hold them up, pull them high into the fog, lift their spirit for the climb, reach the peak, and then pause. Now, look into it all, stand high, and know if you fall, wind will catch you. And remember that we here on the coast are just dust on the warm breeze of time. So the least we could do with our particulate is choose to be kind. But no lessons learned yet. Class out of session. Get caught up in mundane, our selfish obsession. Don't think of the other. Think less and oppress. Waste your life or another. Do whatever you need to do to get by, and then some, and then more. Chew on the gristle of your precious iron ore. Hold your leaders unaccountable, and listen not to the ancient. No, that's all such a bore. Instead, wring out your fellow beings until those beer-sipping, wet-weathered blood on your brutal concrete hands are so sore. Oh, Perth has such a brutal, beautiful sunset they call in their thrall. But that sunset is painted in blood on a back alley concrete wall.
So thank you all so much for joining us this evening, or this morning, depending where you are in the world. Please help me give these fabulous playwrights, Erica Brennan, Tasman Hossain, Michelle Lee and Daly Runge, another virtual round of rousing applause. Thank you. And do please come back and join us next Wednesday on the 8th of December for the next instalment, where you'll get to hear from Cassandra Ellie Yanaku from Traralgon, Victoria, Peter Beaglehole from Clarendon, South Australia, Anna Lauren from Sunshine Coast, Socrates Otto from Sydney, and Nick Vanya from Jindabyne. 5 more wonderful and surprising Australian stories await you next week. And thanks again to the amazing team at Paynes Plough for your collaboration and support throughout. Thanks to all my team here at Critical Stages Touring for making magic happen here. And if you can't wait another week to see our next videos, you can head over to Paynes Plough's website at any time and you'll be able to catch the Come to Where I Am projects from the UK. There's already plenty of series to watch from over there or listen to. And you can head to our digital screening room at any time and see all the digital content we've already made available. If you missed last week or want to catch any of tonight's videos again, just head over to our screening room at any time. Once again, if you enjoyed tonight's performance, please head to our Support Us page, help us continue to make work like this and support writers from around the world. Thank you and see you again soon. Good night.